Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Apologies, but we're back to Czechoslovakia. Apologies to viewers who would like a little bit more varied content on the channel at the moment, but I'm back to Czechoslovakia because that's just where I'm at the moment. We're going back to 1972, and this is Girl on a Broomstick. Again, another one of these bizarre very thin sleeves. This is just DVD only again. Obviously, if all films were in these sleeves, we would have much more space. This is directed by Vaclav Vorlicek, which should be a familiar name because I did a random review of his 3 Wishes for Cinderella, which is fantastic, and recently Who Wants to Kill Jessie, which is fantastic. And just for a change, we're going to talk about Girl on a Broomstick, which is also fantastic. This stars Petra Černocha as Saxana, who's a trainee witch. It also stars familiar face Vladimir Menšik, who seems to be in every single Czech film made in the 60s and 70s. So we join Saxana, who's a trainee witch, in essentially Hogwarts before Hogwarts. It's an all-girls school, obviously, because it's witches. Having male witches would be outrageous. And she's not the best student. She doesn't know the difference between a raven and a cow. She gets her spells mixed up, as well as not knowing the difference between a raven and a chicken. But she does have a very handy skill of making her arm elongate so she can pick up notes and steal books without anybody noticing. She just extends her arm, which is quite handy. So the teachers are quite frustrated with her, including her general witchery teacher, who looks like your more traditional witch, and the head of the school, who has multiple arms, just because. And she gets put in detention for misbehaving for 300 years. But Vladimir Menšik, who's the general caretaker of the school, he does say, well, it could be worse. Sometimes the punishment is 9 generations. And he talks about his experience in the human world down there, which does make sense. Because he says, people in the human world steal things, and instead of turning invisible, they just get caught because they don't actually have magic skills, so they're all a bit strange. But Saxana, who's bored with life as a trainee witch, wants to try out the human world to see what it's all about. So she looks at a book to give her the spell, because you can only go to the human world disguised as an owl, a frog, or a mouse. So she goes as an owl, and she turns up at a local zoo where a young boy's father takes her home to give to his son in a sack. But of course, when he is alone, she turns back into a young lady and comes out of the sack, much to the young boy's incredulity, which isn't even a word. It's that amazing. I do believe this is a kids' film, so there's no question of any weird science type things going on. And also Saxana turns up in school because he takes her in her chicken form to school. And then when his teacher complains about the clucking noise, she turns back into the young woman who causes a bit of a stir amongst the young boys in school. But she only gets 44 hours to stay in the human world unless she can get a hag's ear. So her she changes from she wants to stay in the human world, she wants to go back. So at times she's not that bothered about finding a hag's ear and who's the candidate for being a hag, and other times she wants to find a hag's ear. The three boys are general rapscallions. There's a whole thing about a Napoleon statue that I'm not going to get into, which turns up later to comic effect. And then you have the good boy, who at times she's friends with, and then at other times she goes with the three rapscallions. She pops in on a teachers' conference who are deciding what punishment to give the three boys, and she turns them all into rabbits. There's wonderful transformation scenes. It's all delightfully done, and there's basically an endless mix-up with the rabbits and what colour the rabbits are. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, very much like I've done with quite a few of these films, because a lot of it is the joy of actually seeing it yourself. Needless to say, there's lots of hijinks, some wonderful laughs. Again, another great turn by Vladimir Mensic, who actually wants to stay in the human world because he's got all these modern cleaning gadgets that he doesn't have at home, like a washing machine, and so he gives another wonderful deadpan performance, because again he's just got one of those faces that's just fantastic. It's just a wonderful film. I mean, on the downside, it's only 76 minutes. You really want to stay in the world longer, and you could argue you don't see enough of the school and actually the witching world and the underworld. You don't see enough of that, I don't think, before you're tossed into the human world. But that aside, it's just a wonderful little I assume it is a kids' film. There's brief talk about, if Saxana doesn't kind of concentrate in her studies, forget about the transformation spells, she'll not learn how to kill children and crush them down to make soup. But that's really the only kind of darkness in the film. It's much lighter than perhaps some of the other Czech pohodky, if this actually counts as a pohodky, I'm not quite sure. But it's just a lovely little film. It'll put a smile on your face. And it's just so wonderfully done. It's got a wonderful song, an opening title song, and the animation in the opening titles is wonderful. And it is a tune that you'll be humming long after you've watched the film. So it's got that going for it as well. So that's another odd little Czech film. Again, I apologise for those in the audience that don't want to see Czech films, but there might be a few more coming, because they're just so much fun. So thanks very much for watching this random review of Girl on a Broomstick. Please let me know if you've seen Girl on a Broomstick and what you think of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews, some that might not actually be from Czechoslovakia. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.